On the night of August 30th, 1935, a coal miner in eastern Soviet Ukraine went down for his shift. He was 29 years old, and outside his own village, nobody knew his name. By morning, he was credited with 102 tons of coal, cut in under 6 hours. The quota for a whole shift was 7, so in one night, one man had supposedly done 14 times what a miner was expected to do, with a jackhammer and his own 2 arms. Within days, Pravda, the Soviet Union's main newspaper, called it a world record. Within 3 months, he was in the Kremlin, and Stalin was giving speeches in his honor. By December, his face was on the cover of Time magazine in New York. The whole world was being told the same thing. Look at this ordinary man, and look at what the Soviet system made of him. And the whole thing was staged. The coal was real. Every ton of it came out of that mine that night. The hero was manufactured. This video is about how you fake a person. How the Soviet Union built its perfect worker in a single night. What that deception cost the country that had to live up to it, and what it did to the man who had to play the part for the rest of his life. It starts with the one man that night who knew exactly what was going on. He was standing a few feet behind the miner, pointing a lamp at the coal. The mine was called Central LEMMiNO, and it sat in the Donbas, the big coal region of eastern Ukraine. And in the summer of 1935, it was in trouble. Missed targets, broken equipment, accidents, people just not showing up to work. 10 days before the record, the mine's own party committee wrote all this down in an official resolution. On paper, the mine was failing. And in the Soviet Union of 1935, failing was dangerous. Stalin's industrialization drive was in full swing. The pressure to hit targets came all the way down from the top. And when a mine kept missing its numbers, the official explanation was less and less often bad luck, and more often sabotage. And sabotage was a crime. People went to prison camps for it. Some were shot. So the man responsible for a failing mine in 1935 had a lot more than his career to worry about. Who was this man? In the Soviet Union, there was one party, the Communist Party, and it ran everything. The government, the courts, the newspapers, and every mine and factory in the country. And inside every workplace, the party kept its own man, called the party organizer, whose job was making sure the place delivered. Central LEMMiNO's party organizer was named Konstantin Petrov. The failing numbers were his problem. Petrov didn't need the mine to slowly get better. Nobody in Moscow would have noticed slowly better. He needed something that would make headlines with his mine's name in them. What he came up with was a show, and a show needs a star. The plan was simple. In a normal shift, a miner did everything himself. He cut coal, then he stopped cutting to prop up the roof with timber so it wouldn't collapse on him. Then loaded the coal, and then he hauled it away. All that supporting work ate up as much as half the shift. Petrov's idea? Take one strong miner and take everything else off his plate. One man does nothing but cut coal, hour after hour, while a whole crew works behind him. And on paper, everything the crew produced gets written under the one name. The coal would be real. The work would be real. The team would just be invisible. Then Petrov picked his star, a 29-year-old driller named Alexei Stakhanov. Young, strong, photogenic, with a spotless working-class background. The date was chosen as well. The record would be a gift for International Youth Day, so the newspapers would have a reason to care. So on the night of August 30th, Stakhanov went down with company. Two timbermen behind him, propping up the roof as he moved forward. Men to shovel and haul the coal, the editor of the mine's small newspaper, and Petrov himself holding the lamp, keeping the light on the coal. In the morning, the board showed one number and one name. 102 tons, Stakhanov. The timbermen weren't on it. The loaders weren't on it. Officially, one man had just done 14 men's work, alone in the dark. For that single shift, he was paid more than most Soviet workers made in a month. Within days, he had a new apartment and a free holiday. The other miners at LEMMiNO watched all of this happen. They knew exactly how coal comes out of the ground, and they knew exactly what they had just seen. But nobody asked for their opinion. The mine's little newspaper wrote it up. A regional paper picked it up from there, and then Pravda got hold of it. Pravda was the Communist Party's own newspaper, printed in the millions and read across the entire country. The story was about to get very big, very fast. Pravda called it a world record, and within days the campaign was everywhere. Posters, radio, front pages. The movement even got a name, taken from the man himself, Stakhanovism. Every worker in the country was now invited to work like Stakhanov, and the record itself didn't get to rest. 19 days later, Stakhanov went down again and was credited with 227 tons, double his own number. In November, he was in the Kremlin at a national conference held in honor of record-breaking workers, and Stalin himself gave the speech. That's the speech where Stalin told the hall that life had become better and life had become merrier. It became one of the most famous lines of the decade, and it was delivered at a celebration of a staged night shift. Other industries piled in fast. A blacksmith was celebrated for beating the Ford Motor Company's production rate. Weavers ran double, then quadruple the usual number of looms. And in February 1936, another miner was credited with 640 tons in a single shift, 6 times Stakhanov's number. New records were popping up left and right, each one bigger than the last. Because once a record can be arranged, anyone can arrange one. Then in December came the strangest part of the fame. Time magazine in New York put Stakhanov on its cover, an American magazine celebrating a Soviet coal miner. He was now the most famous worker on the planet. But that Time article contains one detail that has no business in a celebration. A few paragraphs in, it reports that across the Soviet Union, workers had started killing Stakhanovites. Why would anyone murder a model worker? Because of what the records did to everyone else. Once a miracle is official, somebody will expect you to repeat it. At the start of 1936, work quotas across Soviet industry were raised, but pay for the ordinary worker did not keep up. The record setters themselves lived in a different world. Stakhanovites got apartments, while others waited years for one. They got holiday passes, access to goods regular people couldn't buy, and wages several times higher than the men working next to them. 18 years after a revolution that promised to abolish class, the workers had a bitter nickname for this new elite: the labor aristocracy. Some of the anger stayed as dirty looks, some didn't. At a car factory in Gorky, 2 brothers killed a co-worker who had doubled his output. A military tribunal sentenced them to death. Stakhanovites were beaten, their animals were killed, and some of them were murdered. And the state's own violence fed on the movement too. When ordinary workers failed to match the fake records, someone had to be blamed, and it could never be the records themselves. So the blame landed on foremen, engineers, and managers, who were accused of deliberately holding production back. Historians have argued that this fed, indirectly, into the wave of arrests and executions that began the following year, the Great Terror. Failing to match a man who never really did it alone had become dangerous. The country paid for the myth in higher quotas and actual blood. The man inside the myth paid in a different way. From September 1935 on, Alexei Stakhanov had a new job, being Stakhanov. He was brought into the party. He was made a deputy of the Soviet parliament. He was given the Order of Lenin, one of the highest awards in the country, and his actual day-to-day work was telling the story of one August night, on stage after stage, year after year. And Moscow offered other things too. He started drinking heavily. By several accounts, he fell in with Stalin's son, Vasily, a notorious drinker, and he kept pace with him. At some point, he lost his Order of Lenin and his party membership card in a drunken brawl. He got both back within days. That was the pattern of his Moscow years. Whatever he broke, someone above him made it disappear, because Stalin liked him and everyone knew it. Then in 1953, Stalin died, and there was no one left to make things disappear. The new man in charge was Nikita Khrushchev, and Khrushchev had no patience for Stalin's old favorites. In 1957, Stakhanov was ordered out of Moscow and sent back to the Donbass as a deputy manager at a coal trust. The story goes that he demanded to know what he had done wrong, and that Khrushchev told him, "A miner belongs with miners." Stakhanov supposedly shot back, "And what kind of miner are you?" Maybe it happened, maybe it's exaggerated, but what's certain is that he never worked in Moscow again. He ended up in a small mining town called Torres. First a hotel room, later a rented corner in a worker's dormitory. Journalists who tracked him down there described a bare metal bed frame, a piece of cardboard where a mirror should be, and empty bottles. 30 years earlier, he was the most famous worker on Earth, and now, nobody was looking at him at all. In 1945, George Orwell published Animal Farm, and one of its characters is Boxer, the cart horse, the loyal worker who answers every setback with "I will work harder," and who gets sold to the glue factory the moment his body gives out. Ever since the book came out, readers have recognized the Soviet worker hero in Boxer. Orwell made it a fable. For Stakhanov, it was the plot of his life. The state did remember him one more time. In 1970, for the record's 35th anniversary, Stakhanov was tracked down, cleaned up, brought to Moscow, and given the Hero of Socialist Labor medal, with a small apartment and a pension attached. Then it was over for good. He died in Torres on November 5th, 1977, at 71. A few months later, the state gave the dead man a city. Fedivka, the town where the mine stood, was renamed. It was now called Stakhanov. The legend was official, and it stayed that way for 8 more years. Until... In August 1985, 50 years after the record, a reporter from the New York Times tracked down Konstantin Petrov, the man who picked the star, wrote the plan, and held the lamp. And this is what he said about the most famous worker in Soviet history. It could have been anybody else. So the 42 years happened to Alexei Stakhanov, not because he was the fastest or the best, but because he was standing in the right place when a frightened man needed someone to point a lamp at. Everyone in that mine is dead now. The country that printed the story is gone. But Stakhanovite is still in the dictionary. It could have been anybody. It was him.